We're live, guys.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for the first public webinar of Workbank Academy. I'm Tanya Mendoza, the Training and Liaison Officer of Workbank, the job site that lets you job hunt with benefits. To know more about what we do, please watch this. What is... Please regularly visit workbank.com for the freshest jobs that are available out there. We have career and skills development trainings. We also have blogs to help you with your job application. Wherever you are in your career, Workbank is here to support you in your job hunting. For this session, we have invited experts in the finance and accounting fields to give us insights on how to navigate the newest trends in the industry. This event is, of course, brought to us by our newest Academy training partner, Personiv Manila. Established in 1985, Personiv started as a small family business in California. It is one of the companies that started the business process outsourcing industry in the country or in the Philippines with data entry as its main line of business. Over the years, its business evolved in back office, web development, and creative services, as well as customer care and sales. Personiv now has 3,000 employees across the globe and advanced into a company that provides finance and accounting services to several countries. Deeply rooted to its pillar, people, quality, and giving back, Personiv aims to grow more into the industry not only by serving clients, but also by providing job opportunities to job seekers all over the globe. Today, Personiv is powered by eClerks, a global leader that delivers critical business operations services to Fortune 500 clients across industries. Before we introduce our first speaker, just a quick reminder to our viewers that if you have questions, please type them in the comment box and we will get to them during the Q&A session later. Also, please stay tuned because we have raffle prizes that we'll be giving out in between sessions. And everyone's question, there will be a certificate after this session. Just please make sure that you fill out the forms that will be posted on the comment box for your attendance on this session. All right, so to get on with our discussion, our first speaker is a CPA and a graduate or graduated among the top 5% of his class in San Beda University. He is currently a VP for Finance, is a VP for Finance and Accounting at one of the largest multinational banking and financial services company in Australia, a writer, a LinkedIn coach, and one of the top 100 Filipinos to follow on LinkedIn. He also serves as a consultant for the ANZ Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines, or of the Philippines. To let us in on 5 insider lessons to succeed in a career in the BPO industry, please welcome Mr. Dennis De Silva.
Yes, thank you very much, Tanya, for that reputable introduction. No? So anyway, before we start, guys, I know, I understand. No, you might be working on multiple shifts. No, probably you're early on your night shift, or probably you have ended your 8 to 5, or probably you're in the middle of the day. No, middle shift ka. So I do hope that you have your coffee beside you, or you have something to keep you awake. And we speakers will make sure that this training would be noteworthy of your time. No? So probably we were just given 20 minutes. No? So this is very brief but meaty presentation. So I'll walk you through the 5 insider lessons to succeed in a career in the BPO industry. So now moving on to the next slide, siguro a bit of introduction. I know Tanya gave a bit of introduction just so we have that connection. No? So I'm connected in the finance and accounting industry for the past 15 years, but working for roughly 20 years already. I have been most of my experiences seated at the BPO and shared services industry. So merong thin line yun eh, shared services industry and the BPO industry. Currently, I am the finance consultant of ANZ Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines. I'm also a writer, so if you know Medium, so you can search me in Medium, and I'm also a LinkedIn coach. Feel free to add me. I'm open to networking in LinkedIn, and I'm also into property management. No? So that's one of my businesses. So moving on to the next slide. Ayan. So the agenda. So what's in it for you guys who are here? Of course, like what I've said, no, I'll make your time noteworthy. So by attending this brief training, so in this training, you would be recognizing the current work landscape. No? So specifically, the theme is what is it for me during these days. No? So in the finance and accounting world, especially for if you are working or you are interested to build a career in the BPO sector or in the shared services sector under finance and accounting. So we'll touch that briefly. You will be having a broad understanding of the various careers in finance and accounting. So probably you know them already, no? So by just simply going over the various functions under the finance in your company. But siguro let's stop that a little bit. And then of course you will be discovering the insider. So it could be a hidden treasure for you, probably a light bulb moment for some. Others, you know that already, but it still needs reinforcement. And then we'll touch that as well. Moving on to the next slide. Yes, just so the pandemic has disrupted our way of life, no, doing work and business. So we're approaching our second year, no, of pandemic. So I would recall this date, March 15 has been marked in my calendar, no. So some of the industries kasi they have this mandatory leave, and I will understand this earmarks the second year. This is very memorable to me. The month of March, no. So in this pandemic, it really disrupted the way of our living. We are forced to, di ba? So no choice. Talagang lahat tayo, it was already disrupted, no. So when I say disrupted, our work of, if you have a spouse, no, so, or if you're living with someone, everyone is working at home. So I would understand, no, if you're working from home and you're attending meetings like this, or even in trainings, real talk here, no, you need to have a clear space. Like me, I have kids who are roaming around, and to be honest with you, real talk here, if you roam around my place, you would see a messy stuff around me, no. Pero obviously, when you see in my background, it's very clear, no. That's the real talk, real scenario in this pandemic. And when you have kids, there are kids around, you need to do, well, I did homeschooling for the past 5 years already, pero for those, because of the pandemic, parang it's new to other parents, no, the online distance learning. And then if you're attending church, 'di ba? Parang online na lahat. So everything has been disrupted. And the way we see or work, talagang doon ang focus natin, no, na disrupt. And siguro I will touch that in the next slide. So probably when the pandemic started, no, so it was really abrupt change, no, a disruptor, yung COVID-19. So management has probably if you would reminisce the days, 2000, the year 2020, probably if you're working from home all throughout, or if you are working hybrid right now. Pero during the initial months, you might be wondering, no, how can I implement a process that was previously done manually, auto, digitally, right? Those are the questions, which is very apparent, no, nung the time that you have started working or you haven't started working. Probably ito yung these are the thoughts at the back of your head. Second bullet point is how can we secure approval in the midst of the work setup under pandemic? Of course, like for me, I'm also supporting a bank, no? So not all documents are amendable for e-signature or email approval, no? When you're dealing with regulator in a heavily regulated industry, when I pertain to regulator, we talk about here in the Philippine setting like BSP, Bangko Sentral, or we're talking about the banks, di ba? Or we're talking about BIR, PESA, di ba? They need wet signature, no? So for at some point in time, there were circulars by regulators that they would be amendable for digital signatures, but perhaps they are now at this time during the GCQ requesting for manual signatures. Or you might be wondering, no, how can I make it happen? So another point that you could have asked yourselves back then, no? Back then in 2020, where do hard copies go once the transaction has been completed? So for those who are supporting companies onshore, no, some companies onshore, when I said onshore, it's maybe the US, you're supporting Australia, some of them might not be requiring hard copies, right? So, and end of the day, it's seated naman in their vicinity. But if we're talking about the Philippine setting naman, of course, or in India, they are still required or mandated to keep the hard copies. So how can I store it? How can I file it accordingly? So probably these are the questions that you have in mind, no? So these are just some bullet points just to give you an illustration. What would be the work under pandemic and even post-pandemic, no? So paradigm shift, especially right now, we see the realities of working remotely. So expect. So I'm not saying I'm not part of any I'm not part of the of any government body, but probably some companies are already eyeing some cost efficiency measures like working from home. Pwede pala, viable pala kung papayagan ni PEZA or any regulator. So why not? We can expose that. So it would probably define our work in the future, no? So moving on to the next slide. So if we limit it to the finance and accounting world, no? So we're back end, no? We're a back end team. And compared to other BPO companies dealing with contact center or customer care or client facing, um, they would somehow require siguro once in a while to go to office, probably because of some personal information, no? We need to secure customer data information. So working from home, medyo merong roadblock yan, not unless there are some mechanisms in place. Second is, of course, kapag client-facing, we need to have a strong internet connection, so forth. Pero for the finance and accounting, no, so viable talaga na gawin sa bahay, na it can be done at home. Now, so how does it work, no? So what's the difference of being a remote team working remotely, right? So in this setting, if you are a shared service or outsourcing company, so you know naman, right, that you're an extension team of the main country that you're supporting. So I will just use the term onshore. So when you say onshore, it could be a company you're supporting based in Cali or in Melbourne or in Sydney. So you're an extension remote team. So sometimes when you're working remotely, it's hard to build rapport, trust. There's some sort of discrimination. We will tackle it later on. How can I develop that credibility with these people? And now that we're supporting remote team, working remotely, we're not seeing each other in the office. Paano na, di ba? How can I build trust, of course? How can I work collaboratively and making sure that things are being done especially now working under these circumstances, no? Parang hirap, no? Kaya most of the people are tired already siguro doing Zoom online meetings. Pero we'll tackle that later on as I bring you the 5 points, no? Pero just to walk you through, I know you're very familiar already with these functions, but let's give you just a snapshot for those who are viewing us or watching live. No, let me just walk you through each and every facets ng FNA career that you might be interested on. No? So you might be seated in one, jumping into another, or you might be holding another function, somehow similar principle with finance and accounting, pero you want to jump into the world of finance and finance, right? So when I say finance and control, if you're looking at the first bullet, there are different facets of finance, right? We're talking about order to cash, so that's simply accounts receivable, no? So to sales, no? So business context is that of course every company makes money, so they have salespeople, they have marketing and salespeople. They make the sales. Once they make the sales, their transactions like official receipt or sales order, or they issue sales invoice. Our job, being in the back end and recording them, is to capture it and collect from them. So that's order to cash, procure to pay. So other side of the coin, baliktaran lang yan. On the other side, where we are tapping vendors because we need vendors like let's say tapping security services for our building, right? Or we're renting premises. So what we do is there's a certain vendor accreditation process if they're new, and then dadaan to sa accreditation, other procurement, asking them for documents like for their certificate of registration or their financial statement to assess if their credibility, their viability to partner with. And then they would eventually issue us the invoice that we will record eventually and release cash as payment. For general ledger, of course, very prevalent kayo dito. So for those who are doing this job or in the graduates of accountancy, no? So these are the mere bookkeeping in the general ledger, no? So those entries that in scope by the order to cash or procure to pay are captured in the general ledger. So like let's say for the accruals, you need to estimate the billings that haven't been received, then you need to capture that. So if there are prepayments not captured by your module, whatever module you're using, then you capture it here in the general ledger. You amortize it. For the reporting, it could be various reports like balance sheet reconciliation. It's very prevalent naman, no? For every BPO or shared services, there are balance sheet reports or any other reports that facilitates decision making. Business partnering, aka financial planning. So this is the dealing of the forecast and budgeting. For taxation, this is the meaty part where you need to be updated all the time with the circulars issued by the BIR, PESA, attaching the risk and assurance, no, and compliance team. Payroll, so you need to be, if Philippine setting, you need to be acquainted with the Social Security, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig, those mandated regulatory bodies. Or if you want to enter project management, di ba? If you are a fanatic of streamlining functions or looking at process automations, you're good at Excel or Python or whatever program you're into, other than being a finance professional, then you can venture into automation. No? So next slide, please. So okay, so I mentioned to you different sub functions sitting under finance and accounting. No? So let me tell you this. If you are eyeing to jump into another function from under the finance and accounting umbrella, or you're coming from another stream, like let's say from talent and culture or HR, or you're jumping from another function, like let's say procurement or logistics or whatsoever. When you want to jump to the finance and accounting world, do not worry. Don't think too much about the technical aspects of things. No, so I'll tell you why later. Of course, some hiring managers or some people have their own biases, no? Pero for the rest, as long as you understand the principle uh, of the things that I will share to you later, then there would be no issues that can come later. So moving on to the 5 insider lessons. The next slide. Yan. First is understand the context of your task. So ano naman to, Dennis, sinasabi mo, matagal ko nang naririnig yan. Ano ba yung context of your task na yan? So do not be a process-based accountant. So being in the BPO sector or outsourcing industry for the past more than a decade, yeah. So what I have witnessed with other people starting, and even I myself, no, when I have started, no, in the industry, ang napansin ko process based. Pero that's fine. When I say process based, you pull out a work instruction, a desktop procedure manual, lay down, so walk through each step, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, and then you stop. So process based. So nakafocus ka lang sa proseso, and then you forget about the context, no? So understanding the context of your task, it really means a lot, especially when you want to start with another or you want to build a career in FNA, you want to progress. Of course, this is not just one. This is just one part of the variable. Or if you want to jump to FNA, you need to understand the context of your task, no? Kahit saan ka naman magpunta. Pero based on the accountants and even myself personally experience, this is the missing part. So what am I saying? Like for instance, no, when I started, no, so of course in the BPO or shared services industry, that well, it takes a lot siguro. The starting points kasi, the starting point of mastering or being good at your work is really based on the process, right? Let's face it. Yun yung pinaka starting point. But some people don't evolve, no? So like for instance, no, let me just I wrote down a few notes just so I don't forget. Like let's say let's pick up something. For people doing reconciliation or bank reconciliation. So for the bank reconciliation, so I just see this one, the recon. So my job is to get the supporting documents from other streams based dun sa desktop procedure, sa manual na nakalagay. And then once I have already secured all the supporting documents, what I'll do is clear it from my reconciliation items. And the rest that are not reconciled or unexplained, I'll just note it down. And then we stop. No? That's process-based. Based on the process. Pero some people, when we are seated in the meeting, when you like talk to, like let's say you talk to Elmer, so Elmer requests you to sit down with him, no? So when I ask you, what are these unreconciled accounts? What are these unreconciled accounts about? No, what is the context? Why is it not identified? So coming from him, he would want to you to deep dive, go a little bit deeper. Hindi mo lang sasabihin, Sir Elmer, ito lang kasi po yung nasa DTP natin eh. Hihingi ako I'll ask for support documents from AP, from P2P for the outflow of cash. I'll ask for ORs from order to cash from AR team or billing team, and that's it. Pero what's lacking here is that the context that Elmer might be request from you is that you need to know saan ba nanggagaling lahat ng inflows natin. So all of the inflows might be coming from the clients servicing Personiv. It might be some reimbursements of employees who has the facility of cash reimbursement or cash advances, as an example. It might be an executive giving back money or getting, I don't know, from a vendor who we had a bond equity and returning it. So we need to explore. no? We need to go beyond the process. So what are the outflows other than spending money to vendors? No, it could be bank charges, 'di ba? Or it could be a purchase of of shares of this certain club. So I don't know. So those are sample details na maaaring hingin sa no. So I think I made my point clear, no. So do not be a process based accountant, not just based on the instruction, but later on, once you get the groove of the process already, then you need to understand the context, no. Go beyond the manual instruction. So I assure you, you would really sound very smart, or you would really sound an accountant if you're not coming from the FNA world, if you know the context or the process from beginning to end. Okay? Next slide. Skills are the new currency in the world, no? So your credentials and honors are secondary. So when we all started, no, when I started, when I graduated, no, so actually accountancy was my second course. So I graduated back in 2002. So don't compute, no, and then and then I took up accountancy as my second degree, and then eventually after taking up my second degree, by God's grace, I passed the CPA board examinations. And I was like cloud nine, no? Wow, I passed the board exams, no? So I wouldn't be left alone or be isolated or be included in the unemployment rate sa Pilipinas ngayon. But then the thing is, people do not really pay. Well, that's the gate point. It could be an initial variable or initial element once if you're a fresh graduate or someone new, know your credentials and honors. But these honors or credentials are just icing on the cake. Kumbaga, no? As a hiring manager myself, no? So what companies are looking for are skills, right? So if you have noticed, hiring managers would look at would give you case problem scenarios, or even give you or some modules siguro when some companies when you apply, they also give you real key scenarios, no, like let's say what email will you send to this irritated customer. There's some tests like that. So in that way they could assess your skills, no. So where I'm getting at is you need to build your skills, no. And in terms of skills, good thing is that we have all these trainings. Take advantage of it because you would be enlightened of what you are capable of doing. What's your superpower? So, like for me, just for instance, though. So, as I built my career, becoming from a junior staff, from a senior accountant, I eventually became team lead, and until I became a senior manager. Uh, One thing that you need to build on is really to speak, no, to speak like this one. So believe me or not, I'm an introvert. I eat my words until now. I'm not fond um of speaking in front of many people, even pre-pandemic. Pero I eventually need it. I need to exercise my extroversion, especially when I need to, right? Like for this case. So in speaking, so what I did, no, Elmer knows this, and I think some of you knows this. Si Yan, one of our speakers knows this as part of my Facebook network, and even I think one of our audience is here. Si Pat, no, I know Pat is here. Um, what I did to enhance, no, my fear of speaking in front of people. Because when you speak in front of people, sometimes you think about other people's point of view, and I need to shut that out. Because when I think of other people's point of view, then I would be distracted. I wouldn't even finish this training. I might probably quit and say, hey, there's something wrong with my internet. goodbye, right? So what I did back then to build up my skills in speaking and shutting off the other people's point of view is I did video blogging. So some video blogging are nonsense. No, it could be some are amusing, some are most video blogs are boring. Pero ang essence nun is to build my skills, no. And one of those are speaking in front of people, speaking on videos. Lalo na right now, when you're on meetings, you're required to switch on your camera and speak. So sometimes it feels awkward because you think you're just speaking to a camera or to your phone, right? But eventually, when you do it every day or you do it, practice it regularly, it becomes normal already. And believe me, and the bonus part is when I started video blogging, even though the videos are crappy, edited crappy, talagang crappy talaga siya. No, but eventually I made money out of it. Some people were asking me to speak, and the reason why I'm here. So I was invited to speak. So I started like 3 or 4 years ago doing that video blog, and then people invited me for free events. And the bonus part is people pay me money to speak for them. No, so that's one point I want to emphasize when if you build your skills, skills is your currency. Moving on to the next point. So don't underestimate your skills. That's the message of that second bullet point. Third bullet point, malamang sawang-sawa na kayo dito. This is a given already. So treat Microsoft Excel as your best friend, right? So I'm not saying whether you like it or not, right? Or even if you're not in the F&A world, you need to consider Microsoft Excel as your best friend. So when I started my career as believe me or not, I started my career as a marketing brand assistant at an accountant. So when at that time when I was a marketing brand assistant for a real estate company, they showed me this Excel. It was pretty much awkward using it because there were like fields. I was more comfortable with using PowerPoint or using Microsoft Word. But then eventually, again, I had no choice when I first ventured into my first accounting job. I need to be acquainted with Excel because this is the workbook, the working paper of accountants. So it is not just really being sexy or really to impress people of the formula or of knowing the formulas like concatenate or special functions like when you capture something from a pivot table and shifting it to another worksheet, it will disrupt your entire worksheet. It's beyond that, no? So when I say Microsoft Excel is your best friend, it's when you live and breathe Microsoft Excel, it could make your work really efficient and effective. And you know what? Other than making your life convenient, um, Microsoft Excel would um, tag you as a data scientist if you really love data. So data scientist is one sexy role that is open in the marketplace, and I see Tanya smiling, coming from Workbank. No, she knows the the sourcing needs of data scientists. But you don't actually need to be the data scientist, or even an accountant can be a data scientist if you love data and you love exploring and navigating Microsoft Excel. So when I say navigate, of course, you're not just navigating it or just working around the pivot table, but out of those data sets, you know how to analyze it. So that's the starting point, no? Microsoft Excel. And second to the last point, okay. Now, so when I say improve workplace communication, so communication is a state of art. Different folks, different strokes. No, when I was a staff, a senior staff, or when I talk to operations team, um, we all love details, no? Step by step. When we want to emphasize a point, oh, this is what I did. I extracted this from this system. What I did is debited and credited. I followed the DTP. Third, I highlighted based on the DTP. So we love we love those details from operations, no? From the production floor. If you're doing nitty-gritty work and if you want to investigate something, we love to talk about details. But then one thing I've learned, no, is to avoid jargons, especially when I talk to executives or like senior leaders, because they wouldn't know. So out of the, I don't know, so how many are you in the workplace? When we talk about 500 processes, they wouldn't mind what system or what kind of file name you're using. They would want to know the context or of the process. And even in writing, when I write, the best way to write emails is make sure that that a sixth grader or a fifth grader understands your email. Gone are the days that you need to always shift, I don't know, right click and then look at thesaurus, what seems to be a sexy word or replacement for your word when you're drafting emails. But actually, if you are one of those people, you need to drop that off. So that's a deception. And the best way to communicate is you make things simple. You communicate as if you are a fifth grader. So improve the workplace communication by being mindful that for different folks, different strokes. There are different strokes. Okay, even in escalation, no, sorry, going back to the fourth slide, the previous slide, no, even in escalation, when they say art, mahilig tayo mag-escalate, eh, di ba? So like let's say we have SLAs, we have 3 to 5 working days. If this person doesn't respond, what we do is we escalate to the next tier or escalation point to the senior manager or to the head of business. So that's fine. That's part of the process. That's part of the protocol, especially when we're doing a really critical task. Pero please don't be misconceived by the fact when we say escalate, it means bullying people. All right. Again, let's go back to the essence of communication. Escalation is also communication, and communication is a state of art. When you escalate, you could like just pick up the phone, talk to people, diba, and say, "Hey, I need this by this time, and then I hope you could give it back to me because I need to insert some inputs, considering that this needs to be received by this time by the end user." And then you email. So when you email, just like for instance, now you don't need to say, "Hey, Mr. like this one or Mr. B, this has already been flagged 5 days ago." So it's a different tone. So you just when the recipient is having a really bad day, or probably he had issues with his email, so instead of giving you what you're asking for smoothly, there would be some emotions attached to that email. So again, going back to the essence, just to prove a point that communication is an art. So the way you relay it, so expect something in return. No? So the way you relay it, that's the way that you will receive it. Okay. So again, communication is a state of art. And moving on to my next slide. So for those who want to make a statement, who want to be, who want to prove a point and want to be next in line, or you want to gain opportunities, so branding in the workplace matters. So probably you might be thinking, Dennis, ano magba-branding yan? Or and we're working remotely, we're working from our homes, no? So you can switch to online, no? So when I say branding, it means visibility. So if you want to have opportunities, you need to put yourself out there. So this is beyond rubbing the shoulders of people, of the shakers and movers of the company, or kissing someone's, I don't know, whatever. So it's beyond that, no? So this is beyond the organizational dynamics. So if you're really good at your craft, but nobody really knows you, and someone who's under the pipeline also, you might be better than a person, but person is more visible, then guess who will be picked on, no? So of course, the latter. So leverage on online branding. I can give a testimony on this one because not all people are under my radar. So there are some people that I work cross-functionally outside my circle. So my work is only seen by my inner circle. But how can I brand myself or let someone know what kind of work am I doing? So you need to go outside that circle. So I leverage on LinkedIn, right? Or even in Facebook. So you can add me in LinkedIn and see stuff on what I do. And Elmer knows this very well. So the way I do my branding, I invite senior executives, shakers and movers in our company. For those people who don't know me well, I let them know what I am doing there because whatever I post, whatever I share, it reflects of what I know, right? And who I am outside the workplace. So when I have projects or some collaborative efforts with them, easily they can say yes. Or it diminishes or reduces the probing, right? Because they know you already by seeing you online. So leverage on branding because it will take you places, and I can speak for myself. It is very true. Okay. So that's just it. Let's make a difference in the workplace. I hope you find this noteworthy and thank you very much for staying up with me.
All right, thank you very much, Sir Dennis. So that was a very practical um, tip or strategy ba for people, not just in the finance and accounting industry, but actually, I mean, I'm not in the same industry, pero I find that some of those things that you have shared are also relevant to people who are, trying to pivot, with the whole pandemic na, ano yung mga changes that brought
Right.
upon by the pandemic. So thank you for sharing, Sir Dennis. All
Much
right, so
appreciated.
okay, thank you very much. So moving on to our next speaker. So our next speaker finished his bachelor's degree at Ateneo de Zamboanga University and completed his master's at Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila and is now taking his doctor's program at the same university. In addition, he is also an aspiring lawyer and is studying at the DLSU College of Law. He was previously the program chair of FEU Diliman, BS Accountancy, and BS Business Administration programs, and has held key positions for multinational companies in various industries like PPO, manufacturing, and tourism, serving the country by being a mentor of the Philippine Center of Entrepreneurship under the Department of Trade and Industry. And today, to share with us IFRS updates, a warm welcome to Professor Alexis Chua, CPA, MBA.
Okay, thank you very much, Tanya. So I hope you were able to get some takeaways no from Sir Dennis earlier. So my topic for today is somehow very interesting in a way that if you consider how pandemic actually came into our life 2 years ago or yeah last year, and you see what will happen to our, let's say, the structure itself, the IFRS, how it relates to IFRS also, no, because if you will notice, there's no exemption actually if you're talking about standards reporting. Imagine if even if we are in COVID, we still have this particular statutory compliance. We need to report to SEC, we need to report to BIR and whatnot. No, so that's very important to note. So for this 20 minutes or so, siguro you can actually, I beg though to get your indulgence or get your attention, knowing that I will use my wear my professor's hat, no, so I will be your professor somehow. So because IFRS, we will discuss something, what's new about IFRS, what's basically um what's the future, what's ahead about IFRS. So like I said, we need to be future proof, no, we need to adapt, we need to abreast ourselves in different scenarios. Like earlier, Sir Dennis mentioned about how to hone your skills, be updated of something. So I think this is one of the facets. No, you have to be as an accountant, as doing your job on a day-to-day basis. So we don't need to basically focus on the process. We need also to identify and help us, level up our skills based on the analytical prowess that some of us have. No, so I think that's very important. So I will also share my knowledge about what is happening in public practice, because as you know, I'm also the managing partner of an audit firm. So I will give you some insights about what's happening there. You won't believe me that even during pandemic, we still have many businesses opening. There are opportunities for small businesses to grow. So with big companies doing some IFRS. Well, in the Philippines, we have PFRS. We have also US GAAP. So right now, I will focus on IFRS, on how we can actually capitalize in some of the updates or changes. No. So can we please move on to the next slide? So knowing your IFRS, so the agenda for today will be basically the changes in IFRS as of January 1, 2021, reporting the COVID during COVID-19, no? Of course, looking ahead, no? And maybe later we can have our Q&A. So if you will notice, right now for last year and Q1 of this year, updates or amendments in standard is very quiet. No, there's no there's none really, no, that can actually have an impact. No, it's aside from the I think these are follow-ups or I think continuation of amendments previously done by some for certain standards. So can we move to the next slide, please? So yeah, there you go. I picked some of the standards which I think is very, very important, because based on my experience last year when we had been audited by by the external auditors. No, you name it. No, the four big firms, or even in my part as a public practitioner, we basically encountered some issues related to IFRS 9, 15, and 16. So it's easy for us to memorize, no? Kasi 15 and 16 basically magkasunod, no? So you have your IFRS 9, which is your financial instruments, no? So we have also the 15 revenue contract with customers and leases. So I will also share some insights about the phase two of interest rate benchmark reform. So we are going to talk about IBOR. I'm not going to do some lectures. I'm not going to share some accounting entries here. It's just that I really want you to be on a high level, no? Be abreast of what's really happening on the ground, no? Because I think different industries has different needs, no? But this basically three IFRS that I chose basically. These are the common issues that I encounter day in day out in my accounting firm, and in of course in the business itself. And I think these standards are very somehow difficult to understand if you're not really in the practice. So later we will discuss this um, one by one on a high level. Then yeah, you can always reach out naman, no, if you have some concerns to me, no, especially not really active in the social media, but you can just email me. So but in DT I am very active. I'm helping our government, no, to educate our entrepreneurs, no, in that sense, about taxation, how can they do costing. So uh, well, actually, I had some mentoring sessions with Region 10 earlier. Sad to say, because of COVID, no, one of my mentees actually died during our session. Not really during our session, but during the period itself, no. So we were not able to finish the business plan that we're doing. So these are some real scenario that happened during the COVID or during the pandemic. But still, businesses actually they are still surviving at its best. No, so yeah, like I said, we have to be future proof, no, in our career and in of course with our company. So can we move to the next slide because I'm going to discuss IFRS 9, no? Yan. So we have for this particular standard, you have to take note, like any other standards, we have to take note about how it is measured, how is being recognized, and how is it being, you know, there will be some instances that you we have to apply impairment method and those things. So financial instrument is one of the um, somehow most dreaded topics, not only in in the field but also in academe. So most of my students actually failed, no, if I give them exams due about financial instrument. But you have to take note of how it is being structured as a standard. So this actually standard, no, sets the requirements for recognition, measurement of financial instrument, including impairment, like I mentioned earlier, the recognition, general hedge accounting. So all financial instruments are initially measured at fair value. So we are getting technical, no, as we go through these particular IFRS standards and some updates. So please take note that we have the instrument, no, recorded at fair value. So um, can we go to the next slide, please? So there you go. This must be applied in the recognized foreign operation to determine the amount needs, no, to be reclassified to profit and loss, no. So translation of hedging instruments must be applied in respect of hedge items. So like any other instrument, we have some derivatives covered also here. Somehow this is aligned to those items. So if we look at it, we if you look at the accounting let's say recording, so there should be always two areas or two phases of counting. So the first account would be for, let's say, balance sheet, and again for the income statement, the other account. So you have to identify which actually comes in. So there are exposure drafts actually related to that, and they are on that particular area with that premise that it will affect the status or the position of the company, and at the same time the performance, no. So that's why you record it as part of your income statement. So can we move to the next slide? Okay. So yeah, IFRS 15, revenue contracts with customers. So this is basically one of the I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we have to remember as we have these particular items here, even during pandemic, because one of my well many of my clients actually have a hard time, no, trying to resolve some of their accounts, especially affecting these particular standards, no. So an entity recognizes revenue to depict the transfer or promised goods or service to customer in an amount that reflects the consideration to which the entity expects to entitled and exchange for those goods or services. So we have to take note that there will be, transfer of goods, no, and of course performance of services in this particular area for us to recognize this particular contract. So there are many contracts, but you have to identify which one is related to your customer, because we have also lease contract with us, which I will discuss when we touch IFRS 16 later. So can we move to the next slide? So we have actually 5 steps, no, to consider if we are talking about IFRS 15. So first, you have to identify the contract, which I mentioned earlier. We have to understand, no, what contract is this with the customers. Next is identify the performance performance obligation in the contract. So performance obligations basically are promises in a contract to transfer to a customer goods or services that are distinct. No. Then the next step, that which is the third one, is to determine the transaction price. No, the transaction price is the amount of consideration to which an entity expects to be entitled in exchange for transferring of goods. No, so again, we are still on the premise that we have first to identify the cost, which is the measurement, no, of a certain account. Then after determining the transaction price, we have to allocate the transaction price to each performance obligation. On what basis? On the basis of relative standalone selling price. So I'm sure if you're doing some of this, no, I'm sure you're familiar with this. Um, though this is not basically discuss in your undergrad, if you're new, if you're a fresh grad, or even of course in during the board exam. So to tell you frankly, I also had a chance to be a CPA review director in Zamboanga City. We were able to produce some CPAs there, instead of, you know, provincianos, no, going to Manila to take the board exam. Well, the trend now is or most of the top notchers, no, or students doing well in board exams and even bar exams actually came from provinces. So because there are few people who are really engaged, who devoted their time, no, to go to provinces, give the materials, share their knowledge and their expertise to equip these particular individuals. So to equip the students. So during the pandemic, it's very important as well. You know what? I had a talk before in one of the international, what do you call this, convention, the CFO innovation, I think. So we were actually discussing about how these particular individuals can adapt with the fast changing, no, environment. So well, you have to start with the breeding ground of this of the manpower of the or what you call the your resources, which is of course the academy, the universities. So if you will notice, big companies actually tie up with tier 1, tier 2 schools to help them level up their skills, because there's a niche, no, niche basically of skills needed for that. So like for example, there are companies, financial institutions, big companies, they outsource or they put their services here, but schools cannot actually train the students. That's why they have a hard time hiring those people. This is what we call near hire, no, near hire program that we once developed. But of course, funding is an issue. There will be instances that the curriculum will not tie up with the curriculum or the need in the market. But with the K to 12, I remember um, I was part of the committee trying to develop the curriculum for the senior high. That's why we put their service process management, BPM, business process management as well, business analytics. These are all things that people can actually take advantage, or student can take advantage to be hireable once they graduated from college. So these are some of the items, no, na, or facts that we undermine sometimes. But the problem will be the not all professors, not all educators can actually train, no, so that's why there are mismatch, no. But with the government trying to help, so people are trying to, or students or even companies try to align, no. So the same goes with the current situation during pandemic, no. So we try to work remotely, no. As a matter of fact, this situation actually give us more time, no, for to uplift our life, especially the work life balance that they call it, no. So you have the chance to be with your with your kids. So aside from future proofing that I I conduct with my staff or college. I'm also doing some child proofing in the house because I'm a father of two kids. So these are things that we can, easily do things right now. So those are, you have to be very flexible in that way. So there are pros and cons, disadvantage and advantages of working in this or during the pandemic. But later I will show you, or well, hopefully I can discuss as well on what the skills that is basically needed when you hire people to be in your public practice, because in accounting we have those people in the commerce and industry, BPO, shared services, manufacturing. You 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 have all these things. No, you have also in public practice, you have also in academe. So these are three major fields that work hand in hand. No, um, they call it there's a relationship, symbiotic relationship with this particular ecosystem. No, ecosystem of knowledge. That basically uplift or upgrade the skills of each and individual in finance and accounting. So yeah, going back to IFRS 15. So the last item will be to recognize revenue when the performance of obligation is satisfied by transferring a promise or goods and services. So these are typical items that we have to note. No, so right now this has been practiced by most of the companies. So can we move to the next slide, please? I think this is the last IFRS that I'm going to discuss as of January 2021, because there's one accounting or IFRS to be implemented in 2023. I will discuss it later. So leases. So if you will notice, even during pandemic, we are we are still paying. No, the company are still paying for rent, unless you will opt to terminate your lease with that particular building or whatnot. But still, you are paying for an office, because sooner or later, your people will be going back there. So these are some of the items that we have also to understand about the leases. No, so a contract is a lease if it conveys the right of control to use. So remember, there's a right. No, so later we will discuss about, or I will mention about right of use, and of course the liability involved. So you have an asset, you have a liability. IFRS IFRS 16 with the GAAP, US GAAP, mainly has two different treatment for leases. No, because for IFRS 16, they usually have remeasurement. No, whereas for GAAP, they don't. No, but of course they have this particular um, what they call this. They have for IFRS 16, they recognize separate lease and interest expense, but for US GAAP they don't recognize interest expense, and they have no measurement. So with this actually, I have to conduct or to ask external auditor, the big fours, to conduct an audit twice with the company I know. No, so um, instead or sometimes public firms actually earn more money during these COVID times because of this particular instances and particular practices, no, different practices. But you have to oblige, or you have to to meet this requirement for US and IFRS. So can we go to the next slide, please? So we have also IFRS 16, accounting for accounting by lessee. Of course, we have the lessee and the lessor. Okay. So we recognize, I mentioned earlier, the ROU, and of course the lease liability. So we measure them in present value, no, lease liabilities. If We also have to take note about the discounted, no, at the rate implicit in the lease. No, if basically it can be determined, but if cannot, so we will have the incremental borrowing rate. So these are some of the um, important features that you have to understand when you talk about IFRS on the side of the lessee. So can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, the same thing. This is for the lessee. I also mentioned about the COVID-19, how the IFRS actually affect the reporting that we have for the financial statements. Um, can we move to the next slide? Yes. So we have also for the lessors. So it's the other way around. So lessors classify each lease as an operating lease or a finance lease. No. So a lease is classified as a finance lease if it's transferred substantially all the risk. No. So that's very important. The risk. No. You transfer that. So that's the time that you will record your financial lease. So I think that's the last slide for IFRS 16. Um, Next slide, please. Okay, so we have the interest rate benchmark reform phase two. So this is basically the amendments. Okay, enable entities to reflect the effect of transitioning benchmark interest rates such as IBORs, no, interbank offered rates to alternative benchmark. So this is basically very applicable to businesses which deals with rates or even investments. So when you talk about money, we have to talk about financial institutions. So this is basically what's really happening right now. So pending changes, January 1, 2022, the clarification on which fees an entity includes when it applies the 10% test, no, in assessing whether to recognize a financial liability. An entity includes only the fees paid or received between the entity, of course, so and the borrower. So this is basically what's happening. Can you move to the next slide? I think that's uh, we have the continuation for that. So of course, the entity and the lender, including fees paid or received by either the entity on the lender on the other's behalf. So this is the phase two. So we are expecting this for this coming January 2022. So looking forward, I included here the insurance contracts, which is applicable for 2023. Can you move to the next slide, please? So yeah, there you go. Insurance contract, IFRS 17. So it's very easy to memorize 15, 16, 17. So this specifies how entities recognize, measures, and presents, no, discloses insurance contract, insurance contracts, and investment contracts. So this is one of the highly specialized industry in the financial institution. So right now they're basically the council actually is putting so much effort to standardize. No, I have some of the benefits once we have this particular IFRS, no, updated or amended, which is in the next slide. Can we move to the next slide? So we have one accounting policy for all insurance contract. No, an insurance company become better comparable. Similar accounting methods for insurance and insurance companies. Key drivers of profits are made transparent. So I think this is very important because as a company, as a financial institution, reporting to SEC statutory requirements, so it's very easy for them to actually compare or give some comparative analysis between the companies in the same industry. So discount rate based on the cash flow of the contract. So these are some of the changes that we are expecting coming 2023. So by like I said, this quiet years for us, especially during the pandemic. And I guess with this particular updates that I can give you with the given time frame, hopefully it will be very helpful, no, to do especially for reference. So you can always refer on this one. So before I end my speech, actually, I really want to emphasize that you have to future proof ourselves, no, not only our career but personally as a person, or personally as a person, redundant na siya, no, so ganun ka-importante, so ini-emphasize ko. So I remember in law school, pag nag-e-emphasize yung teacher nyo ng 2 beses 3 beses, ibig sabihin importante yon. So That's really I tell my staff, my colleagues, and even my firm, no, we really innovate, no. We are not an old typical accounting firm, because finance and accounting, like Sir Dennis mentioned earlier, you just write manually and everything. So we have different platforms. Everything can be done automatically. We have the digital innovation, we have AI, we have robotics. So you have all the names for it. But at the end of the day, they are programmed by person, programmed by people. They are the products of an intelligent mind, no, of course people. So I think it's very important that any change, no, that is happening right now with us, as long as we, like an accountant, we will not basically be redundant, or even be what do you call this, obsolete. No, I hate to use the term. That's why I'm using the future proof. No, it's if you look at the Google, it's the same definition there. But what I really want to emphasize is, please be flexible with what's happening, how you work, and of course, lastly, be patient with the change. So it's not an overnight thing, no. We have to understand that it is a process, no. We have to follow the system and trust the process. So if you look at the stint of Gilas, Batang Gilas right now, because I used to be a basketball coach, no. So I really put this to my players, that you have to follow the system, trust the process. So even if someone is going to put anybody on that place, they can always perform. If even it's machines or what, it's just making your life easier. But at the end of the day, people are going to decide and make helpful or useful decisions. So that's about it from me. Thank you very much. Hopefully, it's very helpful. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Prof. Alexis. No, medyo technical na tong more on accounting and finance talaga. So medyo nag-struggle ako to understand, but I think some of the definitions naman were cleared out. So thank you very much for sharing those, Prof. Alexis. So I want to check out on our audience, no, our viewers from Facebook. Gising pa ba kayo? Pa yung mga nandito rin sa Zoom. We are going to have like a very quick raffle draw, a raffle time courtesy of our friends from Personib. I just wanted to make sure no we have everyone's on Facebook pa rin, no, because you will need to comment something on Facebook to be able to win some raffle prize. We have let me see what do we have for this raffle draw. Oh, okay. So we will be giving out a Personib tumbler and a drawstring bag, again courtesy of our friends from Personib. The first two people. So guys, ready ang mga typing hands na yan? The first two people to type in or to comment Workbank in partnership with Personib, which is this session. It's a partnership between Workbank and Personib. So the first two people to type in Workbank in partnership with Personib wins a Personib tumbler and a drawstring bag. So go ahead, guys, and we will have someone, meron tayong representative to check on the first people to type on Facebook. Let me know, guys, if we have the name. Okay, mukhang meron ng nanalo. The first person to type it in is Royce Gonza. All right. All right. And the second person to win the tumbler and the drawstring bag is Marge Santos. So Marge and Royce, please coordinate with us. We will have someone to contact you for your prizes. But thank you for participating. At least alam natin nagising pa yung mga audience natin. So now let's move on to our next speaker. Or wait, actually, just a quick reminder lang pala. I need you guys to please make sure that there is a form that you have to fill out that's on the comment box. Please fill out the form if you want to receive a certificate for this session because we need to have your names to indicate it on your certificate. So please find the form, nakapin na dun sa comment box ng Facebook, and we will continue on with our discussion. All right, so let's move on. So our third and last speaker graduated as cum laude from the University of the Philippines with a degree of Bachelor of Science and Science and Business Administration and Accountancy. She is a certified public accountant who has had extensive leadership and management experience from various multinational companies. Currently, she is a finance manager and a world-renowned American or at a world-renowned American multinational corporation. To provide us her expert insights on financial planning and analysis, let us all give our warm welcome to Miss Angelica Pascua Magbanua.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Okay, so I hope you can hear me. Yeah. So good evening, and thank you for inviting me here today. My name is Angelica Pascua Magbanwa. I'm a certified public accountant with Global Services certification. So I've been with the industry for a little over 10 years. I graduated, cum laude from the University of the Philippines with a business administration and accountancy course. So actually, I decided to take that course because of the consistent demand for accountancies year in and year out. So I think um, it's somehow similar to how Sir Dennis explained it a while ago. No, that sure na may work ako. That's probably it. 5 years later, and after passing the board exam, I landed my first job as a management trainee. And from there, I actually, slowly climbed up the corporate ladder where I am right now, working as a finance manager, supporting a global shared service business in a multinational company. So throughout my career, I've handled different facets of finance. So that includes, supply chain, inventory management, compliance, also general accounting, payments, and even the invoicing or collections. So those are the things that I have handled in the past. But it's actually financial planning and analysis that is closest to my heart, and I've been handling this for 8 years. So probably what's gonna be in my presentation is what's FP&A, syempre, and why do I love it? What are the skills and probably what changed in this profession during the pandemic? So let me walk you through it for the next 20 minutes. Next slide, please. So these are the what you will expect from my piece. What's FP&A? What are the skill sets and the technology that are warranted in this profession? Transforming FP&A, meaning how did the role pivot during the pandemic or crisis, and what are my realizations during the pandemic? Next slide, please. Okay, so what is FP&A? So I guess for the past two speakers or topics, we've been discussing F&A, finance and accounting, and even some controlling part. Sir Dennis have mentioned earlier, But what is really FP&A? This is commonly construed, of course, as the typical, budgeting and variance analysis with senior leaders, and it's actually the FP&A team who laid the groundwork to equip management for, of course, the informed decision making. That's making them decide towards attaining their financial and business goals. Um, it's actually a forward-looking job, so meaning being able to provide futuristic insights on how the leaders should navigate through, for example, business risk or provide scenario analysis or different instances so that they could adjust or probably change actions to be ready with changes in the organization or market behaviors or even other economic drivers. So by the term itself, financial planning and analysis, they're actually two parts. Planning, syempre, and analysis. Planning is, of course, the forward-looking side of FP&A. So what are the common activities there sa company? Preparation of annual budget. Meron din tayong tinatawag na rolling forecast or adjusting your budget. So almost all organizations actually prepare an annual plan for their business outlook in the coming year. So that includes, considering volume, considering the market demand, considering the trends, market behavior. For services organization, it's heavily headcount driven. So you have to consider, of course, the compensation and benefit, other overheads that is required to have those people on site. And everything after getting all those costs, of course, you have to put in a certain pricing model there to be able to get it out in the market. So, for example, if it's goods, then you also have to consider adding marketing cost or advertising cost. So aside from annual forecast, actually many companies also prepare so-called rolling forecast. So ano ba yon? It's actually a mini planning exercise as the months go by. So it's more of checking at a certain point in time, kamusta na ba tayo? Are we still on track? If it's still geared towards attaining year-end targets. So best example is this pandemic. Okay, so way back in 2019, that's where most of the companies actually prepared their 2020 annual outlook. I suppose everyone prepared, a business as usual plan. But then come March 2020, so according to Sir Dennis, it's March 15th. Yeah, so somewhere there along those dates, nag-lockdown, government restrictions, people were scared, there were difficulties in transportation. So all those uncertainties in the economy, kasi wala pang vaccine, that's where it all happened. So naturally, the initial thing that the FP&A team had to do was to really adjust and reflect realistic results to also reflect what might happen for the rest of the 2020 kasi hindi na talaga siya normal. It's something that we are not already. It's something that is, we don't know how it will end up or when it will end. So there were actually supply chain disruptions or other changes in even the buying patterns of the people. Okay, so you may recall that some of the hardly hit industry are actually airline, tourism, and even our hotel industries. So that's the planning side of FP&A. I'd say that planning is both science and art. Why? Because we still use data, especially the historical ones, and inject some gut feel or qualitative factors that we consider in whenever we do or come up with a certain plan. The other side of FP&A is actually the analysis. So what is it? It's the aspect where you support business partners by providing reports. So ano yung klase ng mga reports na yon? You might be familiar with year over year. So what happened versus this year and last year, month over month, or the usual ones that is very common to almost all organization is the budget versus actual variance analysis. So all of which have derived insights from historical data. Analysis is also where business performance is also measured and risk management is being highlighted. Okay, so why FP&A? Why do I love it? I love the process fluidity. It's focused on decision making. I probably have mentioned this term many times already in my first 5 or 6 minutes. And with that, it gives me empowerment. You will naturally feel that the management needs you, counts on you, or relies on or probably just want to hear your 2 cents on a certain, situation. That happens, of course, once you've built your credibility in the organization. Another factor another factor why I love this role or facet of finance and accounting is that it has evolved from being, tactical or routinary, like in the past it's just, providing reports, coming up with annual forecasts, scheduling quarterly reviews. But today it has shifted to become more of being a strategic partner in providing recommendations that could change the way the business is operated. So it's more of a course corrector, so to say. So aside from the rules that I've mentioned, I also enjoyed that along the side, on the side, I was able to be leading system enhancements and project management on behalf of a bigger team. Okay, so for further appreciation, probably I can correlate FP&A first with the common accounting processes, but some of these have already been discussed earlier by Sir Dennis. So for general accounting, accounts to report, of course, for the FP&A person's point of view, we want to make sure that we are in compliant with matching principles. Yung mga accuracy of accruals, tama ba yung pumapasok sa libro, revenue recognition, tama ba yung timing ng pag-record natin ng income, kailangan na ba natin silang i-record, amortizations of prepayments, kung kailangan ba siyang i-prepay or kailan siya i-amortize, or other processes that affects the financials. Why do we care? Why do we want to make this very accurate, or why do we want to be on guard with A to R process? Because we explain the numbers, of course, to the management. Other processes for discussed earlier were accounts payable or invoice to cash. So these two, of course, affects our cash flows. For some, like multinational companies, there are actually factors for foreign foreign exchange exposures, or processes or activities that are requiring hedging. So those are the aspects that we want to explain, or we want to take care of in the accounting side. Okay, so FP&A actually sees the holistic view and eventually become responsible in explaining the results. So more often than not, we are also driving, process or operational changes if necessary. Okay, so next slide, please. There. Yeah, so that's about the FP&A introduction. Yeah, and then for this next part, I'll be discussing skill sets and technologies. So what are the competencies do you think are necessary to be an effective FP&A professional? So probably I could refer you to a nice article. I agree with it very well. It's written by Servin and Krum Wade. The title is People Side of FP&A, and this is where I actually borrowed some of the skills that are necessary for this field. First one is the basic accounting principles. So this has been discussed lengthily by Sir Dennis. Of course, you have to have excellent technical accounting skills. So yung basic knowledge mo for what are accruals, ano ba yung debit credit, kailan ba nire-record yung expense, kailan ba nire-record yung revenue, how each transactions are connected, ano yung trigger ng posting nito to our general ledgers. So those are the basic things that you have to understand, and you have to have actually even before entering or going into this role. And not just how it gets to the books, but how it gets to actually our financial reports like income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow statement. And the last one for accounting principles is, of course, the ability to interpret the financial results, like flux analysis, trending, or risk um, analysis. Okay, the next piece or next important skill is to have solid understanding of the business. Not just to have it, but to continually develop your business acumen. So, what does it mean? You have to ask basic questions. So, what are those? What are your key products? Um, ano ba yung pinagkakakitaan ng kumpanya? Who are your competitors? How is the business being operated? What's the organization structure? What's the market outlook in your industry? Who are your key accounts? Sino yung mga big suppliers mo? So I think that's the basic ones that you have to really master so that you can understand or even be able to explain your financial reports. Third skill, I combine the communication and business partnering. So communication muna tayo. It's being able to create coherent and compelling presentations to management, of course. It's important that it follows data points and languages that are easy to understand. So you have to probably make it in simpler terms or avoid jargons so that we can have everyone in the audience understand your presentation, even for non-finance people, which is very um, which is what's happening in reality. No, we have to consider that. Most importantly for communication is how you articulate the story behind your numbers. How do you frame it? Ano yung sinasabi mong kwento? Ano yung pinapakita mo? What do you accentuate or highlight? What charts do you show? What color did you choose? So those are the things that you consider, not just the way you speak, but also the content or the layout of what you present. And then the next one, which I think is another impactful skill, and the one that's I think is the uh, more important recently, is business partnering or being able to collaborate effectively across all departments or functions that you support. So probably sa umpisa, syempre, all analysts or including myself, we start with heavily scripted formal meetings. Yan, invite, may agenda, ganyan-ganyan. We follow those specifically. But as the time goes by, you'll expect that it will be more fluid. Mas magiging komportable ka na because you know what you talk about and they also find you as a very approachable person. So keep in mind that, those small talks or just being able to keep yourself available or approachable, you can somehow subtly inculcate to them na they're only not accountable for their team's operation, but in the end, they're also accountable for the financials of the company as a whole. So the next one is actually the next two skills are actually skills that are necessary to keep up with the changing times or of course the technology. So ano ba yon? Technical aptitude on enablers. So of course FP&A should not be left out and needs to be agile to adopt new ways of working. Vital role of FP&A is to be able to analyze data on a timely manner. So data, as we know it, is only relevant if it's timely and accurate. So paano ba yon? Sobrang dami ng datang available out there. What do you choose? How do you choose to interpret it? What do you choose to present? So, of course, technology enablers are on top of the priorities of almost all organizations. Best in class tools that I know of or probably have heard of are Python, Alteryx, Tableau, and Power BI. They all could provide, real-time data depending on how you set up the data warehouse. They provide relevant insights, very flexible reports, whatever outlook or data points you want to see. It's there. It's just how you manipulate it. So they provide comprehensive business analytics. Actually, aside from CPAs or business graduates, it's also now common to have a right mix of data scientists, programmers, or developers in the team. So this is also what Sir Dennis mentioned earlier. It's becoming a norm or common, I would say, nowadays. And also very relevant or connected earlier is Microsoft Excel. I agree to him that it's still one of the most dependable tool out there. It's not that yun lang ang alam ko, but I think it's very user friendly. Everyone just have to level up to optimize its functionality. More often we just use it for adding or creating formula, but there is more out there, like macros, smart charts, power pivots, or other data modeling features that you can use within the Excel app. And then how you can learn about it, there are lots of tutorials available in YouTube, or yeah, just Google them. At the end of the day, what's important is you have the aptitude and grit to find ways to be always be ahead of the game. So this tip, aptitude and grit, guys, not only applies to work, but in everything that you do in life, just to be ahead of the game. Uh, the last skill is, of course, to be able to anticipate evolving needs. So this is something that's not learned overnight. This is something that you develop once you've mastered probably everything. So I've been more recently, I've been passionate about being more proactive. Questions such as, ano bang impact nito sa akin? Ano bang impact nito sa mga reports natin? Ready ba tayo? Anong magbabago sa frequency ng mga kailangan nating gawin? How does it impact my team? Anong kailangan kong idagdag para ma-respond yung mga ganitong new needs of the organization? So those are the questions that always come to my mind. Isang bigay pa lang sa akin ng information na sa tingin ko what's the trickle down effect to how we deliver our processes. I always make sure that we create backup plans and be more structured on how we approach things. To also be able to share that strategic mindset to my bigger team. I was also able to pilot process changes and develop playbook that could, leverage other future processes as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so aside from technology and digitization, there were also changes in the landscape and methodologies. So FP&A had to be reinvented to help navigate through the pandemic. So, of course, flexible approach. There is an article from Deloitte. It's entitled Reinventing FP&A for the Pandemic and Beyond. And it says there that this unprecedented event has revealed that many assumptions, of course, and data models that we've been using traditionally are now less reliable. Why? Because some of the data out there are, of course, not applicable during the 2020. Iba yung naging takbo ng lahat ng businesses. To protect profit margin and for us to have proper or tighter cost controls, many organizations required more frequent rolling forecast. So mas dumalas yung pagtatanong ng what's the outlook for the remaining of 2020? What's the outlook for the remaining of 2021? So that's how flexible we would want to be. So we provided like scenario planning, provided business leaders with alternatives so that they can, act strategically. Another one is the data attribute. Nagbago rin yung klase ng data na kailangan natin. Also stated in that article is aside from the frequency or the flexibility of our approach, the granularity of the data also changed. What does it mean? The impact of the pandemic differs per geography. Iba sa Pilipinas, iba sa Amerika, iba din kahit nasa Metro Manila ka, iba din kahit nasa probinsya. government restrictions, the speed of going back to normalcy, or even the changes in consumer behavior differ per location. So having a localized data will assist in a more directed action. So dapat mas straight for mas nakadirect direkta or mas localized yung action for a specific location. That's that's one of the things that changed during the pandemic. Another set of data which became more relevant recently are those that are belonging outside the organization. Many leaders want to understand impact of pandemic to customers, suppliers, to the industry, or even the entire ecosystem um, that it is working on. So going deeper and further is now a demand for the profession. Okay, let's move to the next slide, please. Realizations during the pandemic. So how did the pandemic affected, of course, the ways of working, and how do we pivot to the new normal? So let's now move to some of my personal realization. And as we all know, Philippines is still has a long way to go, but is gradually getting back on its feet. Hopefully, soon. Of course, like every one of you, it had an impact on my personal and professional career. So here's just to name a few. Next slide, please. Okay, so first is that FP&A plays a vital contribution to organizational resilience. Of course, aside from guiding towards financial goals like paano ba ma-attain yung targets na 'to, paano natin ma-attain yung certain deliverables mo by year end, but then you also have to consider the recovery. So those are the usual ones. I realized that FP&A also help leaders to find ways how to take care of their employees, either on contingency planning or reallocating resources. So it played a critical role in most leadership teams to look for, funding to address employee safety, paano na yung mga remote workplace needs, like probably internet or telecoms or Wi-Fi, business continuity, and other healthcare support that we needed to provide to the employees. Next one is intelligent automations. This is very an emerging topic. So this is related also to the skill that I mentioned earlier on how to keep up with technology. Ngayong pandemic, it's now um it has caused increased need to have a more automated process, of course, to reduce the team's involvement in data mining. So instead of just doing data cleanup and paghanap ng mga reconciling balances here and there, embracing digitization prepares any organization for business continuity for any similar crisis that might come. Hopefully, wala. Okay? So, actually, madami organization nag-introduce na ng mga technology team just to focus on continuous improvement, automations, and innovations. They have that focus team to enable the rest of the team to be future proof. So, ilang beses to sinabi ni Sir Alexis kanina, we have to be future proof, and we have um not we probably don't have that skill set yet as of the moment, but the organization is helping us but by providing those resources to back us up or at least prepare us to get there. Intelligent automations team, of course, have emerged quickly and proved to be a growing part of any organization, not just in the finance department. And the third one, connect virtually. So, with the uncertainties revolving around the pandemic, actually ngayon more than ever, it's important to connect more often to business partner. Unlike before, you can have just, casual talk here, meet each other on the lobby or cafeteria. Now, there should be a conscious effort to make yourself virtually available. Um, I think one of the panelists also mentioned this, that we have to make we have to show ourselves out there na nandyan tayo, they can ask us, because that's the new core, core role of the FP&A, to really be a business partner. Having a finger in the pulse is a must-have for FP&A. And lastly, you can only be at your maximum potential when you are at your best state. So always focus on self-care for both health and well-being. As the saying goes, self-care, of course, is the best healthcare. So how? Take breaks from your Zoom fatigue. Prioritize what meetings to attend or what deliverables to do first. Probably you can use the 4 quadrants of time management. What's urgent, what's important. Next, maximize your weekends, take your day off, recover, rest, and of course, spend quality time with your family. Third is if you have, downtime, or yung mga dati mong tina-travel ng 2 hours, you could probably now learn something new. Watch something in YouTube, pwedeng Excel yan, or other fundamental and management skills. And probably you could also have a new hobby, and look for something that you love if you don't have any yet as of the moment. So actually that concludes my talk for today. I hope everyone learned something new, or at least I was able to direct some enthusiasm towards FP&A. I appreciate this venue to share my thoughts on how this profession thrived and pivot towards the new normal. Thank you, Workbank, Personiv, and Elmer for giving me this opportunity.
All right, thank you, Miss Angelica. And it's a very helpful talk that you gave actually. Kasi kahit ako nga, and I mentioned, I'm not in the finance and accounting industry, but if I were to actually transition, those are very good tips for me. So for those who are also on our audience who are interested in shifting over to the FP&A or finding an FP&A career, then this is probably I hope that this session is helpful for you guys. So we're down to our like last 10 minutes, but we will actually entertain some of your questions. So if you have any questions from our speakers, feel free to utilize the comment box now to type in your questions while we are getting our speakers back on the screen. Um, so while we are waiting for the questions, I actually have some questions to ask then our speakers. Now, if we can maybe have Sir Alexis and Sir Dennis and Miss Angelica back on screen, no? All right. So well, based on the discussions kanina, and some of the things that we thought of, maybe asking as part of this session, and maybe we can have like a statement from each of you, for all of these questions. Can you maybe share with us some of the difficulties that you have encountered during the onset of the pandemic, and how did you deal with each difficulty? Can we maybe start with Sir Dennis kasi siya yung nauna kanina?
Siguro, I think that was part of my, my set of questions. No? So it's, siguro I'll just go back to square one. No? In terms of our work, it includes kasi manual steps, right? So as I've said, how can we process them when we are in the setting? So it's really a mix of knowing your processes, the nature of your work, and who you can collaborate with. No? That's really important. So I would, if I remember it right, of course you need to. It starts from the basic things, like equipping your team members. You have the right accesses. You have the right toolkits. Second is you know who to contact with, right? Like for IT, because some company processes kasi are there are a lot of bureaucracies, right? So that when it comes to the events that are unforeseen, like yung sa pandemic, instead of going to the queuing, especially if you have critical tasks, you need to know people who you need to contact to. So it's very essential really na not treating your team members or people in the company like robots or some kind of names in the email. So it's good to partner with them, just so if you need something from them, you can go directly. So that is what happens. So it's, first is you need to understand the nature of your work. Second is you know the people who you can ask help with. No, so end of the day, we're sitting in in different facets, pero we have the same objective, to carry out one objective. So that's the reason why we're all parts of one body. Ika nga nila, we're under the same team.
All right. Thank you, Sir Dennis. What about Prof. Alexis? Can you maybe share with us if you have encountered any difficulties nitong nakaraang taon?
Yeah, actually, I think everyone did know. So, well, logistically, for some of my clients, they actually had a hard time, kasi some of those employees working from home, no, so they had to ship the laptops and everything. So, logistically, um, there was really a nightmare. Then next thing is how do you monitor the people if they really are working, no? So dito na test ngayon kung there are you don't really need to manage or basically handheld people just to uh, make them productive. So at the end of the day, how do we actually manage to overcome this? So like any other organization, there's what we call BCP, no? So that BCP 1995, 1997 yung pag-umpisa pa lang ng BPO, may naririnig na tayong about that. So but I think it all boils down to 5 P's. So actually I have this thing in mind, no, I always tell this to my students, no. Proper 5 P's actually gives us this is basically an acronym. Proper preparation produces power performance. So if you take the board exam, if you take exam, whatever it is, no, if you have endeavor, if you have good preparation, which is actually part of the BCP that we have in place, so you can overcome these things. So the nitty-gritty of that will of course be another topic to discuss, but to answer your question, so that's basically how we managed to overcome the pandemic. Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, not two in one because you have like you were able to mention some of the challenges and gave tips then on how to go through that. But and maybe I will ask a question, a different question, pero medyo related to that. And this is for Miss Angelica to answer, I guess, for us. What can you recommend na lang as aspiring accountants to thrive in this pandemic, given na nga na may mga challenges na experience and they might still be experiencing some challenges. So what are some tips that you can recommend?
Hi. Okay, yeah. So, probably the best tip that I could have for now are, of course, to have follow your goals. You have to begin with the end in mind. Kung yan yung gusto mo, you have to get there, you have to prepare, you have to keep learning. Just keep on learning, especially now that I would say there are lots of materials out there. And there are even, companies that are offering stretch goals. You probably might want to do that. And just to be more patient probably for this profession, because not everything comes to the time that you want it to be. Patient lang tayo dapat and maximize all the experiences. Probably, I'd say that a go-getter will have the best piece out there. So yun lang siguro yung ma, suggest ko.
Right. Well, since we're already in the topic of giving tips, no, and recommendations, and I hope you don't mind, Miss Angelica, because I know you've been sharing a lot of tips in this session. What about for financial or finance and accounting leaders who are also watching now and who may be struggling with, some challenges brought upon by the pandemic, and you also give some recommendations or any advice on how they can manage their teams remotely or automation, something like that, or yung mga ganong processes?
Okay, yeah. So for leaders, I think the basic one is really to keep being engaged with your teams. This is somehow um sometimes we neglect because our focus is operational. But the most important one is really to catch up with your team, have temp checks, baka may mga cabin fever na yung mga bata, and learn their struggles. Everyone have their own struggles. You don't know how much, um, probably yung may mga kids, iba yung struggle nila. So those are the things that I could, a practical tip that I could give to a leader. How happy functioning team, of course, deliver great results. That's what you keep in mind, because they know what to do. But another thing is if they're in a good situation, that's another story. See?
True, true, very true naman yun, no? But what about Sir Dennis? Do you have any like 2 cents dun sa for our finance and accounting leaders as to add to the tips na given ni Miss Angelica?
Yep, I think we're under the same boat, no? And a lot of people have been talking about self-care and looking after others, right? So siguro as mentioned by Aika, we have been focused on getting things done. Pero siguro on the brighter side, on another note, in terms of right, because corporate kasi it's a mix of different people, eh. And there are a lot of companies campaigning for, trying to humanize the workplace. And the brighter side of the pandemic is, bringing work into your homes, right? So sometimes there would be like, sabi nga ni Aika, no, there are people who have kids just approaching you in the middle of your meeting, or some background noises that are actually amenable, no? So parang there are companies campaigning that that's okay, that's fine. You don't need to be hard on yourself. You're working from home. And I think that's good. Well, one of the brighter sides of the pandemic, no? Trying to humanize the workplace. So I think it's not really the online meetings. It's tiring. Pero what's good is that it brings you closer, no? If you get into one call a lot, a day or two, every once a month or once every 2 months to just do stuff outside work, no? So that's what I have.
All right, thank you, Sir Dennis. And then finally, Prof. Alexis, no, your final words and tips to our finance and accounting leaders.
Yeah, I guess this is the really what's happening on the ground. No, I think we should respect the time of our staff or our team, because sometimes they sometimes they schedule meeting during lunchtime, lunch break, so even after office hours. So we need to respect that time. So hindi porket we're working in a work from home setup, we can actually oblige them to be on that call or whatever. So we have to respect that. I think another thing is patience. No, so we have to be patient in terms of trying to overcome these things. No, so this will go away sooner or later. So we are doing progress. Maybe hopefully by sooner or later, kasi 10% pa lang na vaccinated. So for some countries they have already 40-50%. So we're going there pero very very slow. So yeah, anytime soon we'll be back to normal. So that's basically my tip for finance and accounting leaders. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for the tips that you have shared. Those are very relevant to our discussion and hopefully to our viewers on this session. So we like to thank you for giving your time today and sharing your expertise. No, we actually have one more raffle to give out another Personif bag and tumbler to our avid watchers. Meron pa rin tayong viewers sa sa Facebook and Zoom. So we're giving away 2 more Personif bags and tumblers to the first person, or no, first 2 people who will type in or who can type in Personiv's web address or yung website address nila. If you can find that, you can Google that. I'm giving you some tips. And then the first person to type it in the comments wins a Personif bag and tumbler, which will be forwarded to you in like the next couple of days. And while we're waiting for that, we will also like to invite or to close the session. We would like to introduce Personif Manila's finance and accounting program head, who has been leading the team towards phenomenal heights. as a finance leader with more than 20 years of combined experiences on commercial finance, SEC and BPO operations, controllership, and enterprise risk management. A round of applause for Mr. Elmer Sarmiento, CPA and certified forensic accountant.
Thank you, Tanya. And thank you to our wonderful speakers tonight. Um, I've known these people for quite a while now. And I'm very thankful for them spending time with us, sharing valuable insights. Uh,
Sorry,
and
sorry, Sir Elmer, sorry, medyo mahina yung audio.
Hello, is this better?
Yes, so much better.
All
Thank
right,
you.
all right. Yeah. I know these people have a busy schedule and they've taken away personal time to be here with us. And the insights they share are truly valuable for people at Personiv and to our guests. Uh, like what I always say to my team, COVID is here. It will be here for quite a while for an unforeseeable future. What sets us apart in the industry is our ability actually to be more agile, adaptable, and very much flexible, and also our willingness to learn, take up new skills, as mentioned by our speakers. Gone are the days that accountants are the sole business advisors. Now it's we're now being joined by data scientists, analytics, as mentioned by our speakers. So it's really up to us to take advantage of our skill sets, grow further, grow further actually. What Ika mentioned on intelligent automation, it's been a talk since 5 6 years ago. We're actually quite laggards in this area. I always believe that. But for us, what does it mean for Personiv and for young professionals embarking on this field? Is this a much more wider world today for accountants to cross into? It's not just gone are the days you're just worried on the fundamentals, ensuring that you're fully compliant with IFRS. Now we have a much more bigger opportunity to be actually business advisors or finance business partners, as Ika mentioned. So what is in store for Personib? I guess also to share a bit more perspective to our guest. Personib in FAO service has grown tremendously since the last year, even in time of pandemic. I think the pandemic has brought a lot of negative, but also a lot of positive opportunities for us as more companies now are considering outsourcing as a viable option to mitigate the loss of talents during the pandemic. And given how we as a company pivoted in order to address this need, like working from home extensively, providing the resources logistically, and continuously training our people. This is how we're going to thrive. And much more than that is our attitude on how we think of customer service. And like what Dennis mentioned earlier, this was really quite important. It's not just knowing the process, but knowing how things are connected, our ability to see the bigger picture. If we are just too much anal on how we comply on the step by step of a DTP, that's not driving value. The value is to see can we optimize processes, data to provide valuable insights to our stakeholders. And that's where the value of an accountant truly lies. Uh, I have much more to say, but in the interest of time, I just like to again, it's my express my sincerest gratitude to our speakers and to our guests for joining us tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Sir Elmer. So I think we're down to our last couple of reminders, no? But we'd like to announce muna the winner of the last raffle. We have two from, or we have one from Facebook and one from Zoom. Congratulations to Maria Eva and Maria Eva Briones from Facebook and Jacqueline Felizar here on Zoom. So please wait for someone to coordinate with you for your prizes. All right. So thank you very much for joining us today. Just a couple more reminders, like I have mentioned, Personib would also like to invite everyone or provide everyone access to their leading financial podcasts called CFO Weekly. So they will be providing most or three of the most recommended podcasts. The first one is here on screen, but feel free to browse through all of them and tune in weekly. So the link to go to would be https colon double slash insights dot personif.com slash CFO dash weekly slash problem dash solving dash in dash accounting. Medyo mahaba yun, but you can find it on your screen. The rest of the other podcasts available for you would be rebounding from COVID and past, present, what's next in accounting. So if you're interested, any of those podcasts, then please do give them a visit. We're also inviting you naman, Workbank is inviting you to attend some of our other trainings similar to this one, where you can gain additional skills into your own skill sets and hopefully help you be more employable despite the pandemic. So here are some of the activities or the trainings that we have available for you guys. Go ahead and visit workbank.com/academy to learn more about it. So that's it. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope to see you in the next session. Have a good night.
Bye.